It was the ultimate plan of fate to bring together the paths of two strategic masterminds, Fola Adeola and Tayo Aderinokun, the two daring young men who gave up everything and placed a risky bet that would forever be remembered in the annals of modern banking history. From owning a barbing salon to owning a bank, it all started as a mere idea, one that would eventually birth a ₦1 trillion financial institution and set them up for life. How did the Guaranty Trust Bank emerge from this unbelievable story? How did it become a top bank in Nigeria despite the failure of its counterparts? And what was the experience of the two ambitious partners in running the iconic institution? A friendship transcending the corporate space, Fola and Tayo have always known each other right from their teenage years. Fola Adeola, born on the 10th of January 1954, grew up in Lagos with his family. Raised in a household of 17 children, Fola was able to support his own education at a young age by hawking goods in the busy streets of Lagos. His parents, quite firm believers in the power of education, managed to enroll the young boy at St. Paul's Breadfruit for his primary education, after which he proceeded to Methodist Boys High School for his secondary phase of learning. It was during these formative years that Fola met Tayo Aderinokun, a partner of like mind and of a similar age. However, they had only met by a matter of fate. Born in 1955 in the blazing heart of Kano State, Tayo began his early years quite far away from Lagos. Born and raised in the northern part of the country, Tayo started his basic education at Baptist Day School, a church-owned academic center which he attended from 1961 to 1966. However, with the growing tensions that eventually opened the stage for the Nigeria-Biafra War, the Aderinokun family had to relocate to the relatively peaceful Lagos to enable their son to lead a normal life. Although it is yet unclear how they met, Fola and Tayo remained friends until they were separated by educational ambitions. While Fola moved on to Yaba College of Technology in 1975 for a diploma in accounting, Tayo proceeded to the University of Lagos for a degree in business administration. But as fate may have it, they had only gone opposite ways in a cyclic path. If you're enjoying this documentary, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support enables us to continue sharing compelling stories like this one. Now, let's get back to the story. After finishing his bachelor's degree a few years later, Fola joined Deloitte, a multinational accounting firm, as an internship candidate. Working with Deloitte was a defining chapter for the young graduate, as it did not only provide him a world-class training in accountancy, but also the credentials to subsequently join two more global accounting giants. With years of sharpening and honing his skill with numbers, Fola eventually became a chartered accountant in 1980. Qualifying through the prestigious Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, reaching the position of a senior auditor at D.O. Dafinon & Co. It was no surprise why NAL Merchant Bank offered him a position of a manager at one of their bank branches. Flattered by their offer, Fola quickly moved to the Merchant Bank, where he served as a manager from 1982 to 1986. With his great deal of experience and expertise in financial firms, the budding banker left NAL in 1986 for an even bigger role at Continental Merchant Bank Limited, where he was appointed the Deputy General Manager and head of the Financial Services Division. It was there that he met his longtime friend again, Tayo Aderinokun, who had grown to become a person of prominence at the bank. Together, the duo moved to Ikoyi, a highbrow area in Lagos exclusively for the upper class, a circle the two successful bankers now found themselves a part of. Prior to that, Tayo had served in the Central Bank of Nigeria during his National Youth Service Program, taking various job offers in the financial sector before finally joining Continental Merchant Bank in 1981. With similar visions in life, it is no surprise how the coming together of these two ambitious young men triggered a spark that would forever change the face of the Nigerian banking industry. Living in Ikoyi, Fola Adeola faced a small but disturbing challenge. The shocking absence of a barbing salon in the whole urban area meant that inhabitants had to travel down to the mainland in search of one. It was during one of those trips that the young banker witnessed a ghastly motor accident that greatly disturbed him, causing him to reconsider the safety of the to and fro movement he had to undergo for a haircut. It was at this moment that the idea of establishing a barbing salon in the neighborhood struck Fola, leaving him no other person but Tayo to help him actualize it. As it turned out, Finishing Touches Barbing Salon became the first barbing salon in Ikoyi and their first enterprise together. A venture that tested their managerial skills and proved their abilities so well that more than 20 years later, the salon still remains standing, even though Fola and Tayo eventually had to sell it in pursuit of a more life-changing project. Towards the end of the 1980s, a period when the Nigerian government was veering the nation into a more liberal economy via the Structural Readjustment Program, the leash on banking licenses was cut loose, and multiple banks began emerging sporadically across the nation. According to Fola Adeola, he received offers from various new bank owners asking him to come manage the operations of their newly founded banks. It turned out that most of the people granted the banking license knew very little about the sector and thus needed capable hands in taking their ventures off the ground. While he felt honored by the invitations, it began to lead Adeola in seeing his potential in running a bank. If they believed that he could run a bank, then what was stopping him? This thought would later become the leading inspiration for a multi-dollar firm. Fola began conceiving his plan of securing a banking license to see whatever skill he had in running one. Laying out the visions of the bank that only existed in his mind, Fola was quite satisfied with what little he had come up with. Yet, a quiet thought kept troubling him as his idea became more and more pronounced. What if something happened to him? A still voice rang consistently in his head. Fola quite knew that he had something up his sleeves, but who could easily resonate with the vision in all its magnitude and splendor. There was only one person that could entertain his idea, as wild as they could be. Tayo Aderinokun, having left Continental Merchant Bank in 1988 and a subsequent role at another merchant bank, had already ventured into his own financial brand, first Marina Trust Limited, by 1989. Not only was he in the position to see reason in Fola's ambitious ideas, but his managerial experience from running his financial startup also armed him with a set of skills Fola would find priceless. Seeing that nothing was really stopping them from building their own banking giant, Tayo ultimately agreed with his friend in exploring the banking sector. In a quest for more hands, Fola recruited a certain Osibodu and Akintoye, two dear colleagues who had also shared their belief in his plans. The vision started gaining traction and the funding team were starting to put one or two together. Yet, they were still to solve two puzzles. What would be the name of the bank? And would it be a commercial or merchant bank? In a meeting that deliberated this matter, each member of the team presented his own idea, discussing possible names until they settled on Guarantee Trust Bank, a name that was intended to capture the philosophy of the proposed bank and form the acronym GTB, one that could easily register with the banking public. While Fola and Tayo, the two major founders, wanted it to be a merchant bank, after much deliberation, the group finalized the decision of creating a commercial bank. This reflected the strong foundation of trust in their shared partnership, where every thought was valued irrespective of personal egos. Between 1989 and 1990, the core promoters held 28 meetings, each with the pivotal goal of setting things in place for the new bank. As men of ideas without resources, the team was faced with the daunting task of raising 20 million naira in capital as required by the Central Bank of Nigeria, one that could only be achieved by convincing investors to buy into their venture. At a time when financiers were highly demanded by multiple bank founders searching for capital, the GTBank founding members were surprisingly able to gather 150 persons interested in pooling resources for their proposed bank. Obsessed with maintaining high ethical standards, the GTB team screened all 150 persons in search of only those with verifiable sources of income. A short list of 42 names was arrived at, and the selected persons were then forwarded a formal invitation by the team. Unlike the norm, the team of four decided that they wouldn't be relying on bringing a prominent politician or retired military officer on board to easily facilitate license acquisition. Instead, they would opt for professionals, banking veterans, and trusted men of integrity to fill the board of directors. Hence, Fola concerned himself with the recruitment process, and Tayo was busy with coordinating investor payments and planning the meticulous license application process. In December 1989, a formal interview with the CBN was arranged. The team prepared intensely, emphasizing their 6 unique selling points, which was 1. Dispersion of ownership, 2. A base of experienced bankers, 3. Technology-driven operations aiming for international standards, 4. Founders and investors of proven integrity, 5. Commitment to supporting small businesses, and 6. A clear plan for branches across key states. In March 1990, the regulatory banking body proved satisfied with their plans by calling them up to pay the required capitalization fund. Investors stepped up, committing sums like 500,000 naira for 2.5% shares or even $1 million for 5% shares until the 20 million naira capitalization fund was raised and paid. Recounting the funding process much later, Fola admitted that the huge deposits amounted to over $2.5 million instilled an unease in him, merely the fear of failure, not for him, but on behalf of the daring investors who had much believed in his vision. After a while, the necessary approvals came through, and the GTBank's board of directors and management team were confirmed. Finally, the official notification arrived on August 2, 1990. Fola and his team were formally informed they had been issued a banking license. Completing the process that began in May 1989, the license was secured, and what began as an audacious plan was now a reality. Even while chasing the license, the GTB management team was already preparing the bank for operations. They focused on recruiting young university graduates from diverse fields like engineering, history, and law, also inviting former colleagues they had known from other banks. The belief was in finding anyone with a brain that could be trained. While finding subordinate workers posed no problem, determining the bank's leadership presented quite a challenge. While Fola initiated the idea, Tayo, who was said to have borne the brunt of the demanding groundwork, also had a strong claim. Initially, both decided to take on double roles as the executive directors of the bank. However, through compromise based on mutual trust, Fola emerged as managing director while Tayo stayed as deputy managing director, both agreeing to share the benefits and perks equally. The two leaders were marked by a powerful blend of contrasting, complementary personalities. While Fola was more of the outgoing networker, often seen as the public face of GTB, Tayo preferred to work behind the scenes, often described as the engine house. This synergy was instrumental in their 12 years of core partnership, which proved critical to the overall success of the enterprise. However, this success did not come without its own challenges. After Guaranty Trust Bank opened for business in 1990, it suffered an initial loss in the first 7 months before profits began a steady climb. Years like 1995 and 1998 also caused negative indicators on the financial records, merely a reflection of the tough and turbulent economy at that time. Profits dropped, and the only time GTB workers received no bonus or salary increase. The management was jolted back to reality, realizing some early branches opened with high hopes in places like Abuja and Aba weren't paying off as expected. This led to a major restructuring in 1998, one that involved the slashing of the management team far and wide. This was a difficult decision for the key leaders, although they reportedly provided the former employees with compensation and assistance in finding new jobs. As the mid-1990s continued to rage in severe political crisis, sanctions, and shrinking economy that saw many banks collapse, GTBank decided to put more measures in place. Instead of risky investments like treasury bills, the bank held massive funds at the central bank, a safer bet that also helped with foreign exchange. Secondly, it shifted focus from financial institutions to other industries, surprisingly becoming dominant in sectors like the aviation market in just 2 years. These strategies and more helped GTBank not only survive the mid-1990s, but also rise in profitability after the economy gained stability in 1999. Via the acquisition of Magnum Trust Bank prior to the 2000s, Guaranty Trust Bank steered into retail banking with the emergence of the millennium. In 2002, Fola Adeola laid out a vision for 50 branches in 5 years, aiming for a strong presence in the capital cities of most Nigerian states. New branches rapidly opened across the country, and then a pioneering move into West Africa, while slow and difficult, saw them open a branch in Gambia in 2002. Even before the CBN ruled the limited bank CEOs from serving more than 10 years, Fola Adeola was not one to climb to power. According to the vision held by him and his co-founder, the bank was meant to outlive them and grow independent of their leadership grip. In demonstration of this vision, Fola Adeola stepped down as managing director in 2002 and was easily succeeded by Tayo Aderinokun. Although the abdication of the key leader was quite manageable by the bank, the sudden departure of two more crucial executives only a few months later dealt a blow to their talent pool, especially not when the Harvard-trained employees Ike Imokwede and Herbert Wigwe had gone to start up their own bank just down the street. Determined to progressively govern Guaranty Trust Bank despite these challenges, Tayo Aderinokun followed with a boss move of establishing a branch in Sierra Leone and then in Liberia, spreading the bank's business footprint even up to Ghana. As the early 2000s unfolded, the bank was rapidly expanding, depositing its vision far beyond its initial roots in Lagos. In 2004, the GTB launched a second share offering, raising over 11 billion naira from Nigerian investors, following a new requirement by the CBN mandating that all banks present at least 25 billion naira in business-owned capital by 2005 to continue operations. The investment run by GTBank not only helped in achieving the recapitalization program, but also saved the bank from becoming a part of the major scrambles that were going on. In 2007, GTB entered the history books as the first Nigerian financial institution to successfully raise $350 million via Eurobonds and another $750 million worth of global depository receipts. This move ultimately led to the bank's listing on the main market of the London Stock Exchange in July 2007, a first for any Nigerian company and any African bank. But the bank was not relenting any further on its growth momentum. In 2009, the bank's leadership was able to raise 13 billion naira in a bond offering back at home, and then in May 2011, a groundbreaking $500 million was raised on the international scene. This was the very first non-sovereign benchmark bond from sub-Saharan Africa, signaling a global confidence in the GT brand. However, just a month later, the bank and indeed the Nigerian financial sector faced a profound loss with the unfortunate passing of Tayo Aderinokun, the co-founder and then managing director of Guaranty Trust Bank. Having guided the bank through a period of remarkable growth, his death created a regrettable vacuum in the institution he dearly cherished. Meanwhile, as it was his dream to create an institution that could outlive him, the deceased leader did not leave without training a pool of capable leaders that could take on his footsteps. Segun Agbaje emerged as a managing director, taking the helm of a ship whose builders served no more. Fast forward to 2024, and Guaranty Trust Bank could now boast a before-tax profit of up to 1.27 trillion naira, easily positioning it as one of the biggest banks in Nigeria. Beyond the strategies, the structures, and the balance sheets, at the very heart of the GTBank story lay one of the most remarkable partnerships ever executed in the Nigerian banking scene. The both key leaders, Fola Adeola and Tayo Aderinokun, had both sacrificed their individual ambitions for a bank yet to be born, even compromising their leadership interest for the rise of the other. Hence, it was possible for the vision of Guaranty Trust Bank to rise above all odds, allowing the bank to become a beacon of excellence and an enduring standard in the Nigerian banking scene.